Do you think games make people more violent?
I good segue there. I don't. I actually 100% don't believe so. Um, in general terms, I don't think of this as an absolute. And I think I say this a lot. To me, there's very, very few things that are complete absolutes, and whether it works one way or the other. And with
Mm.
violent games, I think there might be like one or two people that sure, like they learn from the video games and they don't get the socialization part of it. They just see the violence.
Yeah.
And if they don't grow up correctly, I feel like yeah, they can take the ideas from like a video game, but at the same time they can do the same thing from a movie. And we have so much violence in movies that how do you know what's bringing that up? But putting aside those two people or the few that may become violent, look at how many players, like video game players, are in the world that play all sorts of violent video games, including you and me. And I don't think you and I have ever been like violent to anybody in that extent.
Yeah.
Um,
I just, yeah, I think it might, I can see it desensitizing people. Like
yeah,
maybe
I
a violent video game might desensitize people. Does that make you a violent person? I don't
don't
think
think so.
so.
Yeah, I don't think so either. What's the most violent game you've ever played? Do you know?
Depends on what. Are we talking gore violence or acts of violence?
Well, let's do one of each, unless they're both the same.
I think maybe the most goriest. Oh man, it's weird. I think in my standard, I'd say Half-Life was probably my most violent.
Oh, really?
But then compared to now, the games now, it's like nothing. I think the moment
Yeah, because
when people exploded in Half-Life, you have like gibs going everywhere. And I was like, holy moly, that's so
yeah,
violent.
I remember
Uh,
you were. Didn't you say that gave you nightmares when you were a kid
oh
or
yeah,
toddler?
traumatized. Yeah.
Yeah, the head with the eyes or
Yeah,
something.
the skull with the eyeball on it is the one that
Yes,
scarred me. I had to, oh man.
I remember that. Uh,
Um, yeah.
you know, violent video games. I like that. When you're younger, I know that they can traumatize you to an extent, right? Like give you nightmares. But I
Yeah.
mean, to be fair, video games do have labels on them. Like a lot of them do say like 17 plus. But guess what? Parents still go and buy them for their kids anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
And and then they blame the video game. Like, no, that's not
Yeah. I
how
think
that
the
works.
fundamental problem is the parenting.
Yeah, I
That
think
is,
that's where
yeah.
it all really comes to. Because again, if you don't teach your kids, I mean, if they're like really young and they're going about playing these like violent video games, if you as a parent fail to teach your kid the difference between the video game and real life, then that's kind of your fault.
Yeah. I might be going against the grain here because do I think video games cause violence? I don't, maybe for an adult, no. For a child that can't distinguish between reality and fiction, it might shape their brain into being more violent.
Wait, hold on. I totally missed that whole thing.
Oh,
My thing unplugged. So you said you're gonna go against the grain here.
yeah, I was gonna go against. I think I was gonna say. So does video games cause violence in adults? Uh, to a normal adult, I don't think so. But then when you introduce video games, violent video games to children that are more impressionable, where they can't distinguish between um, reality and fiction, it might shape the way they think. They might shape the way, oh, the way this character acts in a game. That's normal behavior. And so they might be more inclined to do it. I don't know. But
But how young is too young, and how do we differentiate who's capable of absorbing that information and being able to separate reality from video game
yeah.
versus not? Because like as an example, I mean, I'm gonna use myself as an example, but like I mean, my parents, uh, I feel like I don't mean to. I feel like I'm gonna throw them under the bus, but I promise I'm not. But uh, they were a little uh is it more lenient when it came to me watching like R-rated movies, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so like I watched a bunch of R-rated movies when I was still very young, like 8 years old, 9 years old, even 7, I think. Like I watched movies like Predator, Terminator, Freddy Krueger, Arachnophobia, and like I mean, yeah, some of them gave me nightmares, some of them like made me afraid at night, but uh even movies like Saving Private Ryan. Like when did that movie come out?
99, I think.
1998. I was 10 years old,
It won the Academy in 99, I think.
and I watched that movie when I was 10 years old. And I mean, yeah, it was kind of horrifying. I mean, you're seeing war, and even veterans are saying like it's the most realistic film out there. But the thing is, my dad would also show me like a lot of the behind the scenes and stuff like that, and
Yeah.
he would show me how like the effects were made and stuff like that. And so even though it's still terrifying, there's still that small part of my brain, thanks to my dad, that told me, well, it is just a movie. Like people are not dying in this movie. And
I think there might be a difference because you're observing the violence
well,
opposed
but that
to
but that's
acting.
where but that's where I'm going though. So I'm watching all these movies, right?
Yeah.
At,
Yeah.
at a young age. But at the same time, like games like Medal of Honor come out, and they have like a like I think Medal of Honor uh copies a lot from Saving Private Ryan and applies it to the game. And
Yeah.
so me
Yep.
playing the game,
Yep.
I'm like, holy crap, it's like the movie. And I'm going about my missions and stuff like that, but it doesn't stop there, you know. Like later on, there's movies like Resident Evil. There's movies like sorry, not movies, video games like um, even like StarCraft. Like StarCraft also came out in like 1998, 1999,
Yeah.
where like the Zerg go and like literally like rip apart humans and stuff like that, and you see all the blood and all of that, and people are it's a gritty game, but I didn't come out this violent person. I was and have always been a very easygoing guy. Right? So again, like how do we know how do we know when someone is going to be okay versus not?
I just thought of something. Like this is it's weird now because you have drone pilots, right? When
Yeah.
they're just sitting in a chair looking at a screen, and what they're seeing is not even like actual video, it's like thermal feed. So when they blow up things, they can't even there's a disconnect of reality, right? So it's
Okay.
like it's almost like they're playing lack of a better word, it's almost like they're playing a video game because there's no connection of, oh, when I blew up that thing, there's actual people that got hurt or the surrounding area, right? Did you know that?
I mean, yeah, but is that true though? Is it
Um,
better? Is it easier because they're not there because it's like a video game?
I think so, yeah. There's a lot of people. I mean, I forgot what movie. Was it Black Mirror? I think there was a show that actually addressed something like that where it's like you become so disconnected from because you're just, piloting a joystick and you're not there. So it's like, does that make them a violent person because they're actually doing something in real life? Does that equate to violence?
But is that fair to say that soldiers are violent?
I don't know,
Because
right?
well, but I think the question here is like, so the question is, do violent video games create violent people? Uh, And I think in short, the answer is no. But when we start digging deep into it, the question here now is: do violent video games create violent people that become soldiers and therefore they're violent?
Yeah, I
Or
mean, you
is
have to define what violent is. If you kill somebody, does that make you violent? Right? That's
I
someone that's
mean,
serving their country, just doing their job, killing for the sake of defending the country, or that doesn't mean they're violent. But then they go
but it
to a school or a grocery store and they shoot people up. That becomes violence.
yes.
Obviously, yes, but
Okay, so no, but I think that that's it though. Like somebody that is in the army or that's a soldier, that's their job. Their job is to do what needs to be done
right.
to get the job done, right? So whether that is defending something or attacking something, uh, but the thing is, like for soldiers, like not all soldiers were video game players. So
Yeah.
them doing acts of violence doesn't mean that they're a violent person themselves because that's their job. I mean, how many soldiers come back and are like the sweetest people that we know? I mean,
Right.
Adam
Right.
Driver, one of the better actors that we've seen in the last like 5 years, he was a Marine. And
Yeah.
I can't think of any other actors right now, but um, but the question is, once they come back and they're back into civilization, like civilized life or whatever, uh, are they reacting violently towards people that don't need to be acted with violence with? I think at first that kind of weird, but do you get what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah. No, I get it.
I think the question here as to like, do video games make people violent? I think it's more referring to like people that are, you know, in the subreddit public freakout where they go and punch people for no reason just because like somebody said, "Hey, nice shirt," and it's like, "Oh, I'm offended. I'm gonna go punch you for no reason." Like, I think that's what we mean when we talk about like, are video games making people violent? Like, are we asking, the question is, did this person play a lot of GTA 5 and now he thinks he's like invincible? So if somebody offends him, he's just gonna go and punch people with a bat or their fist or whatever. And that's where I think no, not necessarily. I think people can be violent without video games. And I think the amount of people that do become violent because of the video games is very little.
Yeah, I think the baseline, I've talked to Brittany a lot about this. Like people that go do acts of violence were already having that sort of aggression, sort of violent personality to begin with. And maybe the video games sort of like added to that and they went to act out, or it didn't have an effect and they were just had that violent, aggressive personality to begin with. And video games had nothing to do with it. I think it's just in the end, people are just violent. I don't think video games cause that violence in people. It just kind of maybe enhances or exacerbates the violence that's already in them.
Yeah. Yeah, I can agree with that.
Because
I think that is really the what I wonder. It's like what caused them to become so violent that then they play a video game where they shoot up a bunch of people and then that tells them like, well, I can go do that, you know. But I
yeah, I
feel
don't.
like that comes more to like, well, there's just something else that's wrong. I don't think it's all
Yeah,
uh just thanks to video games. Again, it could have been a movie. I mean, how many how much how many things are happening in the world that are like replicas of what we see in movies? Like they see the movie and they're like, that's actually a good idea. I'm gonna go do that.
yeah, I don't.
So
It's just a very. I think it's more complex than just violence. Equals video games. I don't think it's that simple because there's people that. Yeah, I mean, this has nothing to do with video games, but there's people out there that should not have a gun. Not to say that, um, you know, gun control or whatever, anything like that, but there's just certain people, maybe their minds are not as clear as it should be. They can't distinguish reality, or maybe they have aggressive sort of personalities, and maybe they shouldn't have a gun. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, just the same way some people shouldn't drive.
Yeah. Like it's nothing about gun control. It's nothing about that. It's just there's some people like, oh, maybe they shouldn't be holding a knife. Maybe they shouldn't have a knife on their boot. There's just some people that shouldn't do certain things, and maybe
They're
and maybe um, and maybe video games are one of those things where there's just certain people that probably shouldn't be playing these kind of games.
because then they'll learn from it.
Yeah.
But you're right. I think
See-
these are very overreactionary people.
Yeah.
Is that a real word? Overreactionary, but just people that overreact a lot. Basically, that's what I'm trying to say. Is like, is there people that I trust with weapons? Yeah, there is. There's a lot of people that I'm like, dude, I'm so glad you got what is required for you to be prepared and defend yourself, and others. But then there's people that I'm just like, yeah, you're not the type of person that should be carrying, because again, if you get something that offends you, you're just gonna pull a gun on someone and just be like, blah 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 blah.
Yeah, like the people. There's this one guy that just like flashes his gun during a road rage incident.
I was about to bring that up.
Like,
isn't it the guy? Well, I mean, I think you and I have seen a lot of videos on road rage or even public freakout where people like carry guns in their cars, and like someone cuts them off and they get super angry and they pull out their gun and they're like, and I'm like, dude, like what?
I know,
like,
right?
Like it's fine. Like I'm not saying don't be angry. I get angry, dude. People like in our neighborhood are crazy drivers. This section of the Salt Lake County, we have some of the worst drivers. Today alone, somebody didn't stop at the stop sign just up the street. As I was starting to turn. This is not the first time that's happened either. So I was like stop, like I'm coming, like I already stopped and I was starting to go, and this person just goes, man, oh whoops. And then after the gym and turning left onto like 134, I have a green light. Actually, it's a green arrow to turn left, and the car in front of me turns, but then there's this truck that was coming the opposite way, and he just didn't stop. He just kept going, and he almost hit me. And like, bro, like, and like, so I was honking at him, and what's funny is that he like slowed down, and then he started honking back at me, and I'm like, I have a green light, bro. Like, what are you doing? So, sorry, I like just to get back to my point. Like, it's fine to get angry when you're dealing with stupid drivers. And I'm not saying to not feel emotion. It's okay to feel emotion. But to overreact to the point where your brain tells you, well, you got a gun, use it. You're defending yourself against a stupid driver, or you're defending yourself against somebody that offended you. Like that's when you're taking it to the extreme, and that's when that's where we need to be careful with who's getting all these guns, right?
Yeah.
So, but back to the original question.
Yeah.
No, I don't think video games cause violence. It's a touchy subject, and I'm a little passionate about it. So, I'm curious to hear the people's opinion. I think, we're not getting political here. I don't care how you like your opinions, but I feel like we can all agree that we all want people to be safe.
Yeah, I'd say that's a safe assumption.
And I think we should all just work together to get rid of those bad people that get a hold of these weapons, whatever they may be. So
Yeah. Let us know in the comments. While you're there, subscribe, like, and share. Is that all the other stuff? Notification bell, all that good stuff.
yeah, do all of it.
Yeah.
Do you agree? Do you disagree? Yeah, just let us know.